Hello friends, welcome back. Hope you're doing well. This video, I'm going to talk about a couple of different things. The first thing is Luminar Neo is on sale for the holidays starting today, going through December 26th. There's sales on various different configs of Luminar Neo. You can get the Explore plan, which is the Neo subscription without the extensions. That's on sale. The Pro plan is on sale, which is Luminar Neo subscription with the extensions. The lifetime license is on sale, and so is the extensions pack if you want to buy that outright. There's a link down below if you want to check that out, and note that I have two different coupon codes now. Gymnix Neo, which saves $10, or Gymnix 10, which saves 10%. So if your purchase is over $100, use Gymnix 10, save 10%, which is more than $10. Now, having said that, I also wanted to mention that the Luminar Neo team, Skylines Software, they mentioned that Luminar Neo is going to get performance increases in the new year, masking and catalog increases and improvements, more functionality around layers, updates to the user interface, and other performance increases that are going to happen next year. And these are going to be free for Luminar Neo users. So that's great news. They're obviously committed to this platform. And on top of that, they're planning to release more extensions for more pro level editing options in 2023. And they're also, of course, going to improve the extensions they've already released. Today, I've got a skyline image. I'm going to walk through a workflow on that image, share some ideas, some things to think about, some tips and tricks, and show you how I'll edit this image. This is it. Now, that's one of three. This is a HDR. So I've got three different images. I bracketed, and it's F11. As you can see, that's the dark one, that's the medium one, and of course, that's the bright one. So if you're in the catalog, you can just highlight the three, just like that, and you drag them over here to HDR Merge, which is an extension. If you're in a subscription plan, on the Pro plan, you get that included, or you can buy extensions separately now if you want to. Anyway, you do that, you set your settings here. Yeah, I want ghost reduction. Sure, I want auto alignment and chromatic aberration reduction, and you pick which reference image and what amount of ghost reduction you want, and then you just click there to close that and click Merge, and you come up with a blended HDR image. And after the tone mapping algorithm has sort of done what it likes to do to the image, I've got this 3 exposure HDR blended image. The only thing I've done to the image so far, if you look in the edits panel here, is do some erase of some spots that were in the photo. Now I want to go in and develop this image. A couple of things I think about. When I have a skyline in front of a river, I shoot that every time I get a chance because reflections are just fun to shoot, and HDR can really enhance those, which is one of the reasons I like that. Now what I want to do is I always start and develop, so I want to make sure that I'm setting the stage for my photo, for lack of a better word. And what I want to do is add some contrast. I want to pull down those highlights because it is a little bit too bright for me. And so I want to get that under control. I'm going to lift the shadows slightly. While I'm at it, I'm going to cool it off a little bit as well. I tend to like a little bit of a bluer image overall. That's personal taste, certainly season to taste. Do it the way you like to do it. My temperature preferences tend to be on the cooler side, generally speaking. Unless you have like a crazy, amazing sunset, then of course I want it to be warm. I'm going to give a little bit of tint to the image as well, and a slight bump in vibrance. So I've already got a much, much better looking image. If you look at the before, that's the blended HDR with no other adjustments other than some spots being removed. And that is the current state, quite a bit cooler and a bit more pop overall, which is contrast and all those kind of things. Speaking of contrast, that's what I generally always do almost every time is after I go to develop, which is always the first tool, no matter really what the photo is. 99.9% of the time I start with develop, and a very high percentage of the time I go to super contrast next. And that's simply because, as the name implies, it's super at adjusting contrast. It just gives you so much control over the contrast that, and that's generally something I want to do because I first think of the light in the photo and I want to adjust the light. So I start and develop, exposure, contrast, smart contrast, highlights or shadows. And if I need to do anything else, I do that there, whites, blacks, curves, whatever. But then I generally go to super contrast because I want to make adjustments to kind of refine the image to basically look the way I want it to look. And so super contrast is great at that. And there are even photos when I will come in and use super contrast a second time on the same image, including this photo today. So I'm going to show you that here in a minute. But super contrast, let me show you the before. There it is. You can see it's a little bit brighter overall and slightly less contrast, right? And now a little bit richer looking photo. Note that when you adjust contrast in these different tonal areas can have an impact on how the colors look. So just be careful what you're doing there. Don't overdo it. Just move the sliders around, and once you're finished with the tool, you can always come back later and make adjustments if you want to. The next thing I want to do is look at structure AI. I don't recommend doing this exact move all the time, but today I'm going to -100. I'm going to mask it in, and that is going to be with Mask AI, and I'm going to apply that to the sky and the water because basically what I want to do is create the illusion of a really smooth surface of water, which would generally imply a long exposure. So I'm going to click sky and water and let it calculate those and apply the mask. And you'll see here in a second that it's done a really good job of hitting that for me. In fact, there it is. You can see there's a little touch up I could do around some of the buildings, but honestly, that technology with Mask AI is just so good. And for the water, I mean, it basically nailed it. I don't think I could do a better job myself if I was doing that by hand. In fact, I'm sure that I couldn't. Structure AI, completely -100 to really smooth that out. And if I wanted to, I could hit boost, because all that does is amplify whatever you've done. And you can see that smooths it out even further. I'm not going to do that. And I don't necessarily always recommend going to a -100, but I wanted to here because, you know, hey, why not? While I'm at it, I'm going to go into the masking menu. This is something that I like to do a lot. You can keep a mask and just recycle it, invert it, that sort of thing. So I'm going to click copy. So I've copied the mask. And what I'm going to do is close Structure AI and then open it again. And that's because I want to use this tool a second time. Again, something you can do in Luminar Neo that comes in, frankly, really handy. I'm going to go into the masking menu, mask actions, and I'm going to click paste. And so what I've done is just copy the mask, and it's now giving me the exact same mask. Well, I don't want that mask. I want the opposite, which is what invert is for. So if I click invert, you'll see that that's flipped. So now my mask, which means the area that's going to be affected by this adjustment, that is only going to be in the buildings and the trees, not touching the sky or the water, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And I want to bump that up a little bit and just give it a little bit of crunch, a little bit of oomph. Generally speaking, with landscapes, which would be like the trees in this case, I should say natural objects or nature, I like to give them a little bit of Structure AI, and man-made stuff, I like to give it a little bit of Structure AI as well. I just think it looks good. It kind of brings up a little bit of crunch. It looks to me like it just looks a little bit better. I generally don't go really high. You could get a bit more intensity here if I wanted, but I don't. I was at 42, I think. I'm just going to leave it there. And I like what I've got so far. I've basically used positive structure on the buildings and the trees, negative structure on the water, and then done some adjustments in develop and super contrast in order to basically balance out the light. And my next step then was coming and wanting to take a look at the colors. I generally do light, which was develop and super contrast, and then I go and do detail, which is really Structure AI in this case, or negative Structure AI, which is removing the details, smoothing out the water and sky. I usually do those two first and then go third on to color. And that's where I am now, which is color balance in the color harmony tool. This is a pretty minor move, but all I did is I went into the midtones, because there's generally speaking quite a lot of midtones in an image, and I just bumped this up a little bit. And that's simply because I was kind of playing off the blues. I like the blues. I wanted to really create a little bit more of a blue hour look at the actual blue hour. Number one, it was really hazy and foggy that day, really cloudy. The blue hour was not very blue at all. And also, I was downriver on a bridge shooting the skyline from a different direction, and I knew I wanted to be there when it was full blue hour. So I'm creating a little bit of that feeling, even though it was probably 30 minutes before actual blue hour hit. Anyway, so using midtones in color balance can help impact a photo, because there's a lot of midtones in it. And by taking the yellow blue away from the yellow and toward the blue in the midtones, I'm just adding more blue. So there it is before the adjustment to the blues, and there it is now. Basically, I just created a bluer looking photo. And I got to this point and I thought, this looks really good, but I kind of want to see if I could get it to pop a little bit, a little bit more. I just wanted to do that. So I went back to super contrast and I used it again. Now, I said a couple of minutes ago, hey, you can just, go back and adjust the tool that you previously used by going and clicking on the edits tab, and you can, but I don't always do that. Sometimes I'll just open a tool again, and I will admit that I don't really know technically if there's a reason why one would be better than the other. For me, it's just about trying to get to the look that I like, and using super contrast again, I kind of prefer to leave the first one untouched, because if I get in here and I do some things and end up hating it, I can just delete this instance and reset this to 0 and not mess up what I previously did. So that's one of the reasons. In fact, that's the primary reason why I will use a tool a second time instead of making an adjustment to the first use of the tool. So here's super contrast, and if you look at the before and after, it's not a big deal. There it is before, and there it is after. I've got a slightly darker sky, which I think looks nice and accentuates a little bit that blue hour mood that I was kind of going for. The only other thing I did was I felt like, even though I like my blues, I'm creating a blue hour, it might be a little heavy-handed on the saturation of the blues. So I came into the saturation, HSL, and I took the blue saturation slightly down. So maybe like a -15, not a lot, because I created purposefully that blue look and I don't want to lose it. I like it and I want to play that up. I just don't want to overdo it, and it felt like it was a little bit much. Here's another thing I did not do in this photo, but I recommend experimenting with if you're trying to do what I'm doing here, which is creating a little bit more mood and light adjustment, is go into the luminance. And because again, there's so much blue, if I take the luminance of the blue down to the left, negative, I'm basically dropping the brightness level of the blue. So if you look at that, I can create a darker and darker and moodier kind of look to the blue or to the image, and it looks like it's deeper and darker into the blue hour. And in fact, I kind of like that quite a bit. Even though I didn't do that in my original edit to the photo, I left it like that because I wasn't trying to overdo the blue hour. But even at a -100, it looks pretty cool. It's pretty moody and pretty fun. So experiment with that in your own images. But that's my edit. The only other thing I might do, I'm gonna leave that adjustment that I just did with the blues, is sometimes a final little touch, a little bit of pop. I'll come in with the accent AI and just give that a little and I've talked about that in previous videos, and you could just hit it with like 20 or 30 or something like that. And if you look at the before and the after, gives it a nice little umph. And by the way, if you're being a little nervous, or if you feel a little nervous about how much Accent AI is impacting other things, because it does a lot of stuff. It does light, contrast, color, all that kind of stuff. You could come in with a masking tool. I'll often use a radial mask and just basically apply it to a certain, like an oval area in the image using the radial mask. I'm okay with it going across the entire image here. I think it's added a nice addition. And that's my workflow for this video, my friends. Let me show you what we started with. That's what it looked like before, including the spots, right? Because when I hit the backslash key, it goes back to the base photo, which is the blended HDR. 3 exposures stuck together in HDR merge, which is my favorite extension. I'm using it more and more. And then all these edits that you just saw here with all develop and super contrast and all those kind of things. And I ended up with that, which is a very dramatic and different look, but I love it. I mean, I really like it. There's so much you can do. And I've effectively created a mood that's quite a bit different and enhanced, we'll call it, compared to what I actually saw, which is for me, a lot of the fun of being able to edit photos in Luminar Neo, because it gives you so much power and control over the things like the light and the detail and the color, which are to me the things that you're editing in a photo or fixing or creatively adjusting, however you want to describe it. That's the beauty of what you can do in Luminar Neo. And as I said, it's on sale. There is a link down below if you want to check it out. And of course, leave me comments if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer. Thanks for watching, my friends. I'll be back really soon with more Luminar Neo tutorials. Thanks for watching, hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you guys. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, adios.